My name is Naomi, and my chosen topic for this assessment is punishment an effective behaviour modification strategy in children? The article that I have chosen for this presentation is an article titled Effects of a Reduced Timeout Interval on Compliance with the Timeout Instruction. The article was written in 2013 and was published in the Journal of Applied Behaviour. It implements and evaluates a process designed to reduce problem behaviour and increase compliance with the verbal instruction to go to timeout. Timeout is a negative punishment that is used widely among teachers and parents to decrease problem behaviour in children. In research already conducted, specific timeout measures have not been evaluated adequately, hence the reason for this experiment. One restriction that has received little attention in the literature is the method of administration, whether verbal or physical, of timeout. In the experiment conducted, the researcher assessed a procedure designed to reduce problem behaviour and increase obedience with the verbal instruction to go to timeout. Specifically, the timeout interval reduced when the child obeyed the timeout instruction. The aims of the experiment were to evaluate a timeout procedure designed to decrease problem behaviour and increase agreement with the verbal timeout instruction. To address some of the limitations of previous studies, data was collected on both latency to comply with the timeout instruction and on the rate of timeout producing problem behaviour. Implement an observation timeout that could be used in a variety of settings, including schools, and also to determine the effectiveness of the procedure for compliance with the timeout instruction. The hypothesis for the study was, do timeout parameters, specifically the method of administration by teachers and parents, effectively reduce problem behaviour in children? The participants were 6 children who had been referred for participation by their preschool, and they had displayed problem behaviour during free play times. The participants were all boys and ranged in age from 3 to 5 years. One of the participants had been diagnosed with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and another had been diagnosed with emotional disorder. 4 out of the 6 children had no diagnosis. All participants and teachers reported using timeout in their classrooms and homes. However, none of the participants had previous experience with the timeout procedures used in this study. Sessions were conducted 1 to 3 times per day, 3 to 5 days per week. Each session consisted of 10 minutes of time in. However, the total session duration varied depending on the frequency and duration of timeout for each participant in a particular session. Sessions took place on the playground for 4 of the boys and at home during free play times for 2 of the boys. The timeout conditions. Each participant was reminded of the playground or house rules and were given the opportunity to ask any questions. If a rule was broken, the experimenter moved within arm's reach of the participant and delivered a verbal instruction to go to timeout while pointing to the nearest timeout location. There were 2 lengths of timeout. There was a 4-minute timeout. So before the start of a session, participants were told if they broke any of the rules, they would be sent to timeout for 4 minutes, no matter how quickly they got there. Then there was the 1 to 4 minute timeout. Before the start of the session, participants were told if they broke any of the rules, they would be sent to timeout for 4 minutes, but if they went to timeout straight away or made it to timeout within 10 seconds or less without any assistance, then they would only have to stay for 1 minute. The key findings of this study included problem behaviour during time-in was high and decreased during timeout phases for all participants. Problem behaviour decreased in both the 4-minute timeout and 1 to 4 minute timeout conditions. 4 of the 6 participants complied with the timeout instruction considerably more in the 1 to 4 minute condition than in the 4-minute condition. 2 of the participants remained non-compliant with the verbal instruction in both conditions. And on average, all participants spent less time in timeout during the 1 to 4 minute condition than in the 4-minute condition. So results showed that timeout was effective in reducing the problem behaviour in all 6 participants. Both procedures decreased problem behaviour to 0 or near 0 levels. The experimenter could not completely rule out the possibility that simply stating the rules to the participants contributed to the decrease in problem behaviour. It is highly recommended that procedures in which children can spend less time in timeout and more time in time in are beneficial. Time in at school usually consists of instructional and social time with other children. Valuable learning experiences occur during both types of activities. Time spent in timeout takes away from opportunities to learn new skills and should be avoided to the greatest extent possible. The limitations of this study include the experimenter was a person not familiar with the children. This may have had an impact on how they responded and complied. The sample was 6 boys. This is extremely limited. The study may have presented differing results if more children, both boys and girls, participated. The small sample makes generalizability of results very limited. The distance to the timeout area was not held constant. A participant could play right next to a timeout area or on the opposite side of the playground or room. Data was not collected on problem behaviour during timeout. However, informal observations suggest that all participants engaged in problem behaviour during timeout. Data was not collected on the treatment of integrity of the timeout implementation either. In conclusion, my chosen topic was Is Punishment an Effective Behaviour Modification Strategy in Children? This paper is relevant to this topic because 6 preschool-aged boys participated in the study. Timeout is a negative punishment that parents and teachers use regularly in order to diminish problem behaviour. The study was designed to reduce problem behaviour and increase compliance with the verbal instruction to go to timeout, and it was found that timeout effectively reduced the problem behaviour of all participants, and the procedure to increase compliance with the timeout instruction was effective for most of the participants. Therefore, this paper supports the idea that punishment is an effective behaviour modification strategy in children. Thank you.